Hi, I'm Claire.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Peyton.
And we're Team 3. Today we will be discussing the ethics behind the case of gilbane gold. So Gilbane is a city which rebrands their sewage sludge as fertilizer for farmers. Because of this, the town has severe restrictions on heavy discharge of metals. The Gilbane also has a very good tax rate, which attracts companies such as Z-Corp. Z-Corp manufactures computer parts, and because of this, it has a high output of heavy metal discharge. The town does not regulate the discharge itself, so it must be monitored by the engineers at the company. David Jackson is the engineer who is monitoring this information, and he comes to a crossroads when he finds that the data is showing that the heavy metal discharge is higher than the city limit. The primary issues behind this case are whistleblowing, and the secondary issues are honesty, respect, and trust. Rachel will now talk about the ethics behind the case.
So the first ethics code that was violated was that the engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public in performance of their professional duties. So this was violated by Z-Corp because due to the measurements from their newer tests, they were aware that they were exceeding the limits, but because these were not required by Gilbane Gold to disclose, they did not. And so even though they knew that the public was being harmed by these levels of heavy metals, they did not disclose this. In addition, they, in order to work around the limits that were that Gilbane Gold gave them, or that Gilbane, the county of Gilbane gave them, they increased their volumetric discharge to make it seem as if they were within the limits, because the requirements were based on the amount of heavy metal discharge for a given volume. So by increasing the discharge, they were able to avoid that. And they also received a new contract with a new company which would increase their discharge fivefold, which they should not have done because they were aware that their discharge levels were already outside the limits. In addition, the other ethics code that was violated was that engineers shall act in professional matters for each employer and client as faithful agents or trustees, and shall avoid conflicts of interest or the appearance of conflicts of interest. Now, this was violated by David Jackson because he whistle blew about the situation.
So from watching the video of the Gilbane Gold case, it was decided that David Jackson did, in fact, whistleblow to the news reporters, the local for Gilbane. He had told them that and reported to them that Z-Corp was, in fact, abusing the laws and the regulations for the discharge. The test had shown the amounts of discharge that was actually, or the chemicals in the discharge that had exceeded the limits, and they were using two different tests. There was the old test and the new test. The old tests, however, were a part of the laws. The older tests were less sensitive, and they showed that the chemicals were within the limit. The new test that the company was using and that we're aware of showed that the chemicals were above the limit and they were more sensitive. However, the old tests or the new tests were not used in the reports from Z-Corp.
So Team 3 perspective is that David Jackson should not have whistleblown to a local TV newscaster. Instead, what he should have done is he should have exhausted all resources throughout the company of Z-Corp. He did talk to a few employers, but he should have gone through the entire chain or management chain before going to talk to anybody else. And if that didn't work, we believe he should have gone to the Gilbane County itself and either tried to work to get more a larger tax relief from the county so they could actually finance a change in their practices, or he should have just talked to them directly, but the last resort should have been a local TV newscaster.